You're listening to Living in Spain podcasts with David Wright.
Hi, David Wright here, and welcome to another one of my podcast episodes. In this episode, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about my latest little adventure, my operation here in hospital just yesterday. Okay, so last week I went to, actually it was 6 days ago now, I went to the doctor's, a little bit of a lump on my back, a small lump the size of my thumbnail, that's been itching for a couple of months now, and my doctors originally thought it was nothing to worry about, and sent me to a specialist who I saw 6 days ago, and he said it is a cancerous tumour. It's one of the better ones to have, if there is such a good thing, and but it needs to come out. We need to cut it out. It can't be frozen off like I've had a couple of times before with little marks on my skin. So yeah, he said we need to cut it out. So I said, oh, okay, so what do I need to do? Make an appointment? He said, I'll do it now. I'll make an appointment for you now. And it was done there. And then he said, you'll get confirmation tomorrow of the exact time and details, but it should be next week. I got home and waited just 2 days. And then they said to me by phone call, you've got an appointment for the hospital to come in at 4:00 in the afternoon. So that was yesterday. And it was less than 6 days from seeing the doctor to having the operation. So yesterday I went with my wife, around about 4:00 it was, and to the hospital, which is literally at the end of my street, and we went to the upstairs where they do the operations, signed in at the registration there, and they told us to just go and sit in the waiting room. There was about 8 or 10 other people there. And I waited about 5 minutes, no longer, called me in to a waiting room where they gave me some gowns to get changed into. I got changed into the gowns and the fancy hat they give you, and the paper boots and all that sort of thing. And then I went, my wife looked after all my clothes, and they asked her to go and sit back in a waiting room. And then they walked me through into a waiting room ready for the surgery. I waited there in this waiting room in a hallway for about 5 minutes, or less than that, about 3 minutes, I guess. And then I was taken with a nurse into another area before you go into the surgery itself. And then I was taken into the operating room, all very quickly, very clean and efficient. I saw hardly anybody at all, except a few nurses walking around. So in the operating room, I met a surgeon and another guy and 2 nurses there. They're all very friendly. Took the gown off and laid face down on the operating table. It's a proper operating theatre. It was all scrubbed up, masked up and everything. And then gave me an injection in the back, which was a bit like an injection at the dentist. A little bit painful, but nothing too bad. And that numbed the area instantly. And within a minute or so, he was operating on my back. And I was listening to them speak and everything, laying there quite comfortably. A bit of a weird feeling, a bit uncomfortable, though. You could feel them pulling and pushing my skin around and stuff. And I felt the stitches when they were doing the stitching, although there was no pain whatsoever. And then it was about a 15-20 minute operation. They dressed the wound and everything. I got up and they walked me to a little waiting area. Then a nurse took me back into another waiting area where my wife came and sat with me for about 15 minutes. Then I got changed, saw the nurse, and walked home. And that was it. I came home, and they've told me to rest today, so I'm resting. And tomorrow, that's just 48 hours after 24 hours or so after the operation, I've got to go and have the dressing cleaned, and then a new bandage put on my back. I'm not sure how many stitches I've had. He said there's a few stitches interior of the wound because it was quite deep. I'm not sure how many stitches are outside, but anyway, and I'll go back to have the stitches out in 10 to 15 days. So they're going to phone me with the next couple of days for the appointment for that. So yeah, so in the next 48 hours, I think it's tomorrow, I can't remember, and I've got it written down somewhere. I've got to go back and have the wound cleaned and then the stitches out in 15-day time. Now the service was amazing, from seeing the doctors when I first made the original appointment to see the doctor, it was 3 days to make the appointment. I did it online. They give you a phone confirmation to tell you got your appointment. And then the operation was literally within 6 days of seeing the specialist. Very clean, very fast, very efficient. Very happy with the service here. It's not the first operation I had. I had an operation several years ago on my hand. I cut my hand with an electric saw quite badly down to the bone, and had to have about 12 stitches in that, and a lot of aftercare for 3 months after that. And at that point it was very, very good as well. I remember all the service there was very good. And if you remember, at Christmas my Spanish wife fell off a small step ladder and broke her hip and femur bone. And she had to have a full total hip replacement with a ball joint and a titanium rod placed in her femur. And she was in hospital Christmas Eve for a week having that done. And then she's had a 4-month recovery. She's back to work normally now, walking perfectly normal, just got a nice big scar on her thigh. But the treatment there was amazing in the hospital, when I stayed with her in the hospital a few days as well. Food was amazing. Service was fantastic. Can't fault the services or the hospitals here in Spain. They're absolutely amazing. So if you're worried about the hospitals, you can click on the link below this audio. There's a blog post I've done with some pictures and some videos, some more details about the operations we've had and the experiences we've had, and what I think about hospitals in Spain. But nothing to worry about. They're absolutely amazing here. I thoroughly recommend them. A lot better service I've had here than I've ever had in the NHS, and no waiting at all. So there you go. Thanks for listening, and leave a comment after this.
If you have enjoyed this podcast by David Wright, then you will love his new books. Out now on Amazon and Kindle, packed with money-saving tips and information on living and working in Spain. Just go to livinginspainbooks.com. David also has a popular blog for expats in Spain. Come and take a look now at britishexpatsinspain.com.